The alarm clock screamed at 5:15 in the evening, just like it had every day for the past 7 years. Captain James Mitchell, 59 years old, reached out from beneath sheets that smelled faintly of bourbon and loneliness, silencing the shriek with a practiced slap. 5:15, time to wake up while the rest of the world was sitting down to dinner. He lay there for a moment in the gray light filtering through Venetian blinds he never opened fully. The bedroom was small, sparse. A bed, a nightstand, a dresser with 3 of its 4 drawers empty. No pictures on the walls, no photographs on the dresser, nothing that would make you think a human being actually lived here, rather than just existed. Mitchell sat up slowly, joints protesting. 59 felt like 70 some mornings. Most mornings. He ran a hand over his face, feeling the gray stubble he would shave before his shift. The face in the bathroom mirror was not one he looked at for long. Too many lines, too many years, too many ghosts living behind those eyes. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the occasional creak of settling wood. It was always silent. Mitchell lived alone in a neighborhood where families laughed behind lit windows, where fathers threw footballs with sons in backyards, where the sound of living was everywhere except in this house. This tomb. He had bought it after the divorce, 15 years ago. Bought it because it was cheap, because it was small, because it required nothing from him. Nancy had taken everything else in the settlement, the furniture, the savings, the photo albums. She had left him the uniforms, the medals, the memories he did not want. A fair trade, he supposed. She got the life they had built. He got the war he could not leave behind. Mitchell shuffled to the bathroom, turned on the shower without waiting for it to warm. Cold water was a shock to the system, a jolt that pushed away the dreams. Always the dreams. Even after 25 years, they came every time he closed his eyes. The flash of impact, the scream of metal tearing, the smell of burning fuel and something worse, something that had once been human. He dressed in the uniform of the invisible. Dark blue security guard outfit, badge that said Allied Protection Services, name tag that no one ever read. He strapped on the belt with its empty holster. They did not trust him with a gun. Not after the incident 3 years ago when a supervisor had startled him from behind and Mitchell had spun with his fists up, eyes wild, back in a desert that existed only in his mind. 7:30. Time to leave for the warehouse. Mitchell locked the door behind him, climbed into a Toyota pickup that was older than some of the children playing in the street. The engine turned over on the 3rd try. Good. That meant it would probably start again when his shift ended at 6 in the morning. The drive to work took him past the high school where his son Daniel had played football, where Mitchell had attended exactly 3 games before Daniel stopped asking him to come, past the diner where Nancy used to wait tables when they were first married, young and stupid and convinced that love was enough, past the VFW hall where men with the same haunted eyes gathered to drink and remember and lie to each other about how fine they were doing. Mitchell had not set foot in the VFW hall in 7 years. Not since the night he had gotten drunk enough to tell the truth about February 26, 1991, and someone had called him a coward, and Mitchell had not disagreed. The warehouse sat on the edge of an industrial park, surrounded by chain-link fence and security lights that turned night into a sickly orange twilight. Mitchell parked in his usual spot, clocked in with a supervisor who barely looked up from his phone, and took his position in the guard shack at the east gate. 8 hours of nothing. 8 hours of watching empty parking lots and locked doors. 8 hours of being alone with his thoughts, which was both the best and worst part of the job. He did not have to talk to anyone, did not have to pretend, but he also could not escape the endless loop of memory that played behind his eyes whenever he let his guard down. Mitchell pulled a thermos of coffee from his bag. Black, no sugar. He had stopped tasting it years ago. It was fuel, nothing more. He settled into the chair that had molded itself to his shape over thousands of hours, pulled out the paperback Western he was reading for the 4th time, and began his vigil. Midnight came and went. 1 a.m., 2 a.m., the only sounds were the hum of the electric fence, the distant growl of trucks on the interstate, the occasional rustle of some animal in the weeds beyond the light. 3 a.m. was when the ghost came out. Mitchell set down his book and stared out at the empty lot. In the orange glow of the security lights, he could see them. Marcus Hayes, 22 years old, grinning that Alabama farm boy grin, telling jokes that were never quite funny, but always made you laugh anyway. David Rivera, 20, quiet and intense, always reading medical texts in his spare time, dreaming of becoming a doctor. Kyle Anderson, 17, baby-faced and eager, writing letters home to his girlfriend every single night. His crew, his family, the three men he had promised to bring home. 2 out of 3. That was his score. 2 out of 3. Marcus Hayes. Mitchell closed his eyes and he was there again. February 26, 1991. The date was burned into his brain like a brand. The day the war had ended for some and never ended for him. They had been moving up Highway 8, part of the final push. 7 months they had been in Saudi Arabia, training in the desert, learning to work as a unit, becoming more than 4 men in a machine, becoming brothers. Mitchell had been 26 years old, a captain, a tank commander responsible for one M1 Abrams main battle tank, call sign Warhorse. His crew had trusted him absolutely. When he gave an order, they moved. No hesitation, no doubt. That was the covenant between a commander and his crew. Total trust, because in combat, doubt gets you killed. The engagement had come suddenly, like they always did. Iraqi forces trying to retreat north, desperate, dangerous. The radio had crackled with contacts, coordinates, orders. Mitchell had been calm, professional, doing exactly what years of training had prepared him to do. Then the RPG. Mitchell had not seen it coming. None of them had. One moment they were advancing, buttoned up, ready. The next moment, the world exploded. The impact against the turret sounded like the fist of God. Metal screamed. Something inside the tank burst into flame. Mitchell's training took over. No thought. Pure instinct drilled into him until it was muscle memory. He keyed the radio. Get out. Get out now. That is an order. The driver's hatch blew open. Anderson scrambling out, coughing. The loader's hatch. Rivera moving fast, hitting the ground, rolling away from the flames, beginning to lick up the side of the tank. Mitchell grabbed the gunner's hatch control, pulled. It did not move. Below him, in the turret, Marcus Hayes was trapped in his seat, surrounded by ammunition that was starting to cook off in the heat. Mitchell could see Hayes's face in the dim red emergency lights, could see the fear, could see the understanding. Sir, Hayes's voice was steady, steadier than Mitchell's hands. Get out. Not without you. Mitchell pulled harder on the hatch. The metal was hot now, burning his palms. He pulled anyway. The hatch would not budge. Jammed, damaged in the explosion, sealed. Below, Hayes was pulling at his straps, trying to squeeze through the narrow space, trying to reach the commander's hatch above Mitchell's head. But the turret was not designed for that. The angles were wrong, the space too tight, and the fire was spreading. Sir, Hayes again. Voice still calm, still following procedure. You need to go. That is not a request. Mitchell pulled at the hatch with everything he had. His hands were bleeding now. He could feel the skin tearing, did not care, could not leave him, would not leave him. The radio crackled. Sergeant Major's voice, hard and commanding. Mitchell, get out of that tank now. That is a direct order. Mitchell looked down at Hayes one more time. Their eyes met in the flickering light, and in that moment, everything was said that needed to be said. Hayes nodded once. Go, sir. Live. That is what you need to do. Live for all of us. Mitchell had hesitated for maybe 2 seconds. 2 seconds that felt like 2 lifetimes. Then his hand had reached for the commander's hatch above his head, had pulled himself up and out, had jumped clear just as the first ammunition round cooked off inside the turret. He had hit the sand hard, rolled, scrambled to his feet. Anderson and Rivera were there, pulling him away from the tank. Mitchell had fought them, trying to go back. But they held him while Warhorse burned, held him while he screamed Hayes's name, held him while the ammunition detonated in a chain reaction that turned 60 tons of armor into a funeral pyre. The fire had burned for 3 hours before it was cool enough to approach. When they finally opened the turret, there was nothing left to bring home, nothing but dog tags and the memory of a 22-year-old kid from Alabama who had died following orders. Mitchell had received a Bronze Star for his actions that day, for tactical excellence under fire, for saving 2 members of his crew. The medal was in a box somewhere in his closet, still in its case, never opened. Because how do you display a medal for the day you left a man to burn? The sound of a truck backfiring jerked Mitchell back to the present. 4:30 a.m. The guard shack, the empty parking lot, the ghost fading with the approach of dawn. He picked up his thermos. Empty. He had drunk it all without tasting a drop. His hands were shaking slightly. They always shook after the memories. After 25 years, you would think they would stop. They never did. Mitchell pulled out his phone. An old flip model, no internet, no apps, no connection to the world he had abandoned. Just calls and texts. The missed call log showed 17 calls over the past month, all from the same number. Daniel, his son. He had not returned any of them. What would he say? How do you explain to your son that you are a coward who could not even protect his own crew? How do you explain that you left him, left his mother, left everyone because you did not deserve their love? The phone rang. Mitchell stared at it. 5 a.m. Who called at 5 in the morning? He flipped it open. Unknown number. Hello? A woman's voice. Professional. Warm. Captain Mitchell? Captain James Mitchell. Who is asking? My name is Sarah Holbrook. I am the director of the American Heritage Museum in Hudson, Massachusetts. I hope I am not calling too early. It is 5 a.m. I know, I apologize. But I wanted to catch you before your day began. Captain Mitchell, we have acquired something that belongs to you, or rather, something you once commanded. Mitchell's grip tightened on the phone. What are you talking about? Your M1 Abrams, call sign Warhorse. We purchased it from a military salvage yard in Kuwait 3 years ago. We have spent that time completely restoring it, and we wanted to invite you to come see it, to be part of our grand opening ceremony next week. The world seemed to tilt. Mitchell put a hand on the desk to steady himself. I do not understand. That tank was destroyed. I saw it burn. The hull survived. Most of the internal components survived. We rebuilt the turret from another M1, restored the systems, made it whole again. Captain Mitchell, your tank is alive, and we think you should see it. Mitchell could not speak. His throat had closed. Warhorse. After 25 years, the machine that had been his home, his weapon, his crew's coffin. I am sorry, I cannot. Captain Mitchell, please, just consider it. We are not asking you to speak. We are not asking you to be a hero. We just think you should know that Warhorse has come home. And maybe it is time you did too. She gave him an email address, asked him to think about it, told him the museum was opening October 10th, just 7 days away, told him he would not have to face it alone. Mitchell hung up without saying goodbye. His hands were shaking worse now. He stood up, paced the small guard shack, tried to breathe through the sudden tightness in his chest. Panic attack. He recognized the signs. Had been having them for 25 years. 5 minutes, 10, the shaking subsided, the breathing normalized, the ghosts retreated back to their corners. Mitchell sat back down, pulled out his phone, opened the email app he never used, found the message from Sarah Holbrook. It contained a single image attachment. He stared at the file name for a long time before he opened it. When he finally did, the screen filled with a photograph that stopped his heart. Warhorse, gleaming under museum lights, fully restored, perfect. As if February 26, 1991 had never happened. As if the fire had been a dream. As if everything could be undone. But it was the people standing in front of the tank that made Mitchell's vision blur. 4 men, 3 in wheelchairs, 1 standing behind them, hand on the shoulder of the man in the center. Kyle Anderson, older, heavier, gray-haired, but unmistakable. That same boyish face now lined with the years. David Rivera, thinner, wearing scrubs like he had just come from a hospital shift, still had that intense look in his eyes. And in the center wheelchair, Marcus Hayes, alive. Mitchell dropped the phone. It clattered on the desk, screen still glowing. He stared at it like it was a live grenade. Because that was impossible. He had seen the explosion, had seen the fire, had attended the memorial service where they had buried an empty casket because there was nothing left to bury. He picked up the phone with trembling hands, zoomed in on the image. It was Hayes. Older, yes. Scarred, yes. Missing his left leg from the knee down, face marked by burns that had healed badly, but alive. Unmistakably alive. And he was smiling. Mitchell's chest hitched. Once. Twice. Then the sobs came. Great heaving gasps that he could not control, could not stop. He put his head down on the desk and cried like he had not cried in 25 years. Cried for the boy he thought he had killed. Cried for the years he had wasted punishing himself. Cried for the life he had thrown away because he could not forgive himself for a sin he had never committed. When the storm finally passed, Mitchell sat up, wiped his face with his sleeve, looked at the image again. Hayes was still there, still alive, still smiling. There was text below the image. Mitchell scrolled down. "Jim, it has been 25 years. I need to tell you something. Something I should have said that day. Please come. We all want to see you. We need to see you. Your crew needs you. One more time. Please." Marcus. The sun was rising. 6 a.m., end of shift. Mitchell closed the email, put the phone in his pocket, walked to his truck on legs that barely held him. He sat in the driver's seat for 10 minutes before he could make his hands work well enough to turn the key. The engine started. He pulled out of the parking lot, drove home, walked inside, did not go to bed. Instead, he went to his closet, pulled down the box he had not opened in 15 years. Inside were his uniforms, his insignia, his medals in their cases, and beneath them, wrapped in a green towel, his Bronze Star. He unwrapped it, looked at the inscription: "For heroism in ground combat, for actions above and beyond, for saving the lives of his crew." Mitchell had read those words 1,000 times and never believed them. Because heroes do not leave men behind. Heroes do not run when their crew is burning. Heroes do not spend 25 years hiding from the people they failed. But Marcus Hayes was alive, and that changed everything. Mitchell rewrapped the medal, put it back in the box, went to his computer, an ancient desktop that he used maybe twice a month, opened the email, read Marcus's message again, read it 5 times, 10 times. Then he clicked reply. His fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long moment. What do you say to a man you thought you killed? What do you say to a ghost who turns out to be flesh and blood? In the end, he wrote only 3 words: "I will come." He hit send before he could change his mind. Then he sat back in his chair and waited for the world to make sense again. The reply came 4 hours later. Mitchell had not moved from his chair, had just sat there, staring at the screen, wondering if he had hallucinated the whole thing. "Jim, thank God! We will be waiting for you, oh." The museum opens October 10th, come the day before. October 9th, private tour before the crowds. Just you, me, Kyle, David. Like old times. Sarah will arrange everything. Just come. Please. Below that, a phone number and a final line. "Jim, you did not fail me. You saved me. I have spent 25 years wanting to tell you that. Do not make me wait any longer." Mitchell printed the email, folded it, put it in his wallet, called his supervisor, and quit his job effective immediately. The supervisor did not ask why. Men like Mitchell quit all the time. Ghosts walking away from the world of the living. Then Mitchell did something he had not done in 7 years. He opened his blinds, let the sunlight flood the bedroom. It hurt his eyes. He let it hurt. Felt like penance. Felt like waking up. He had 5 days until October 9th. 5 days to prepare to face the crew he had thought he failed. 5 days to figure out how to be human again. Mitchell spent the first day cleaning his house. Really cleaning it. Not just pushing dirt around, but scrubbing floors, washing windows, throwing away the accumulated debris of a life unlived. He found things he had forgotten he owned. Photo albums from before the war. Pictures of Daniel as a baby. Pictures of Nancy smiling. Pictures of himself young and whole and unbroken. He did not throw these away. Instead, he put them on the dresser where he would see them every morning. A reminder that he had once been someone other than a ghost. The second day, he went to the barber. Got his hair cut properly for the first time in years. The barber tried to make small talk. Mitchell managed to respond without fleeing. Small steps. Tiny victories. The third day, he drove to the mall. Bought new clothes, not security guard uniforms. Actual civilian clothes, a jacket, slacks, a shirt that was not stained or frayed. The saleswoman asked if he was dressing up for something special. He told her he was going to see some old friends. She smiled and said, "That was nice." He almost believed her. The fourth day, he sat down and wrote a letter. It took him 6 hours and 4 drafts. The letter was to Daniel. Mitchell did not know his son's address, had not known it for 5 years. But he wrote it anyway, wrote about the tank, about Marcus Hayes, about the realization that he had wasted 25 years hating himself for something that was never his fault. Wrote that he understood if Daniel never wanted to speak to him again. Wrote that he loved him and was proud of him and was sorry for every single day he had not said so. He sealed the letter, put it in the drawer of his nightstand. Maybe someday he would find the courage to send it. Today was not that day. But it was written. That was something. The fifth day, October 8th, Mitchell packed a bag, a small duffel, clothes for 3 days, toiletries. The photo of his crew, 4 young men standing in front of Warhorse in Saudi Arabia, January 1991. All of them smiling, all of them believing they were invincible. He locked his house, climbed into his truck, programmed the GPS for Hudson, Massachusetts. 4.5 hours, he could do this. He could face them. He could hear whatever Marcus needed to say. The drive passed in a blur of highway and autumn trees. New England in October. Beautiful in a way that hurt. Mitchell had forgotten that beauty could hurt, that anything besides memory could hurt. He stopped once for gas and coffee. The young woman at the counter asked if he was okay. He must have looked worse than he thought. He told her he was fine. She did not look convinced. He paid and left. Hudson, Massachusetts appeared like a postcard. Small town, clean streets, American flags hanging from porches. The kind of place where people knew their neighbors, where children rode bikes without helmets, where the past seemed very far away. The GPS directed him to a hotel near the museum. Mitchell checked in. The clerk was friendly, too friendly. Mitchell managed to smile and nod and take his key without running. The room was clean and anonymous. Generic art on the walls. Bed that looked like every hotel bed. Mitchell sat on the edge and stared at his phone. 6 p.m. Marcus had said to come tomorrow morning, October 9th. Private tour at 9 a.m. 15 hours. Mitchell did not know if he could wait that long. Did not know if his nerve would hold. His phone rang. Daniel's number. Mitchell stared at it for 3 rings. 4, 5. Then he answered. Dad? The voice was older than he remembered. Deeper. But still Daniel. Still his son. Hello, Danny. Silence on the other end. Then a shaky breath. Dad, is that really you? It is really me. I have been calling for months. Years, I thought you were. I do not know what I thought. I know, I am sorry. I have been. I have not been myself. Where are you? Massachusetts. Near Boston. There is something I need to do. Something important. What is it? Mitchell closed his eyes, tried to find words. I am going to see my old crew. From the war. The men I thought I had failed. It turns out I did not fail them after all. It turns out I have been wrong about everything. Another silence. Then Daniel said something that broke Mitchell's heart. Dad, can I come? Can I see you? You want to see me? I have wanted to see you for 15 years. You just would not let me. Mitchell pressed the heel of his hand against his eyes. I do not deserve that. I do not deserve you wanting to see me. Dad, stop. Just tell me where you are. Mitchell gave him the hotel address. Daniel said he would drive up tonight. Said he would be there by midnight. Said they had a lot to talk about. Said he loved him. Mitchell said it back. For the first time in 15 years. I love you too, son. After he hung up, Mitchell sat on the bed and tried to understand how his life had changed so completely in 5 days. 5 days ago, he had been a ghost. Today, he was going to see his crew. Tonight, he would see his son. Tomorrow, he would face the machine that had defined his life and haunted his dreams. He did not sleep, just lay on top of the covers and stared at the ceiling and waited for midnight. Daniel arrived at 11:45. Mitchell heard the knock and opened the door and saw a man of 33 who looked exactly like Mitchell had at that age. Same jaw, same eyes, same way of standing like he was ready for a fight. They looked at each other for a long moment. Then Daniel stepped forward and hugged him. Mitchell stood rigid for a second. Then his arms came up and he held his son and realized he could not remember the last time he had hugged anyone. Daniel pulled back, looked at him. You look different. I feel different. Good different? I do not know yet. Ask me tomorrow. They sat in the hotel room and talked until 3 in the morning. Daniel told him about his life, his job as a paramedic, his divorce 2 years ago, his 2 children, Emma and Jake, who Mitchell had never met, never even knew existed. You have grandchildren. Daniel's voice was gentle. Careful. They ask about you sometimes. I show them pictures. Tell them you were a soldier, a hero. I was not a hero. Daniel shook his head. Dad, I do not know what happened in that war. You never told me. Never told anyone. But whatever it was not your fault. You need to know that. Mitchell looked at his son, this man he had abandoned, this good man who had somehow forgiven him. Tomorrow I am going to find out if that is true. Do you want me to come with you? No, this is something I need to do alone. But after, I would like you to meet my crew. I would like them to meet my son. Daniel smiled. It is a date, old man. They slept a few hours. Daniel on the other bed, Mitchell finally closing his eyes without nightmares for the first time in longer than he could remember. When the alarm went off at 7:30, Mitchell felt more rested than he had in years. They had breakfast at the hotel cafe, coffee and toast and conversation that felt almost normal. Daniel asked about the museum. Mitchell told him what little he knew, that it was new, that it held one of the largest collections of armored vehicles in the country, that somewhere in that collection was a tank that had been his home, his weapon, and his burden for 25 years. At 8:45, Daniel drove him to the museum. The building was massive, modern, glass and steel rising out of a landscape of autumn trees. Not open yet, construction equipment still visible around the perimeter. But the parking lot had several cars, staff arriving early. Mitchell got out of Daniel's car, stood looking at the building. "You can do this," Daniel's voice behind him. "Whatever you think you did wrong, you can face it." Mitchell nodded, did not trust his voice. "I will be at the hotel. Call me when you are done. I will be here as long as you need me." Mitchell turned. "Thank you for coming, for not giving up on me. You are my father. I could never give up on you." Daniel drove away. Mitchell stood alone in the parking lot as the October sun climbed higher. 9 a.m. Time to face the ghosts. Time to find out if dead men could forgive the living. He walked to the entrance. The door opened before he reached it. A woman stood there, late 40s, short dark hair, wearing jeans and a museum polo shirt. Warm smile that reached her eyes. "Captain Mitchell?" "Yes, I am Sarah Holbrook. Welcome to the American Heritage Museum. Your crew is waiting for you." She led him inside. The American Heritage Museum smelled like new concrete and old metal, like possibility and history mixed together in equal parts. Sarah Holbrook walked with the quiet confidence of someone who knew every inch of her domain, leading Mitchell through corridors still lined with construction plastic, past rooms where workers were installing final displays. The sound of their footsteps echoed in the vast space. Mitchell's heart was hammering so hard he thought Sarah must be able to hear it. 25 years. 25 years since he had seen his crew. 25 years since he had failed them. Except he had not failed them. Marcus Hayes was alive. The knowledge sat in his chest like a stone, heavy and impossible and real. Sarah stopped at a set of double doors. Beyond them, Mitchell could hear voices, male voices, laughter, the sound of men who had survived and learned to live with their survival. "Before we go in," Sarah said, turning to face him, "I want you to know something. This museum exists because of men like you. My father was a tank commander in Vietnam. He died before I was born. I spent my whole life trying to understand him through these machines, through the stories of men who served in steel." She placed a hand on the door. "Your crew has been here for 2 days waiting. They are nervous too, Captain. They do not know if you will forgive them." "Forgive them?" Mitchell's voice cracked. "What do they need forgiveness for?" "You will see." Sarah pushed open the doors. The room beyond was a conference space, windows overlooking the museum floor below. Sitting around a table were 3 men. They stood as Mitchell entered, or 2 of them stood. The third remained in his wheelchair. For a moment, nobody moved. 4 men frozen in time, separated by 25 years in a gulf of unspoken words. Then Kyle Anderson broke the silence. "Permission to hug my commanding officer, sir?" Mitchell's throat closed. He managed to nod. Anderson crossed the room in 3 strides and wrapped his arms around him. Mitchell stood stiff for a heartbeat. Then his arms came up and he held the man who had been a boy, who had written letters to his girlfriend every night, who had dreamed of going home and marrying her and having children. "Did you marry her?" Mitchell heard himself ask. "Jenny? Right? From Michigan?" Anderson pulled back, grinning. "Married her in 92. 3 kids? 2 grandkids now. She told me to tell you thank you for bringing me home." David Rivera was next. Thinner than Mitchell remembered, wearing scrubs under a jacket. The handshake turned into an embrace. Rivera's grip was strong, the hands of a man who had spent decades saving lives. "I became a nurse," Rivera said. "Work at the VA in Phoenix, trauma unit. I figure every life I save is one I owe to you for saving mine." "You do not owe me anything," Mitchell managed to say. Then Marcus Hayes wheeled forward. Mitchell looked down at the man he had left to burn. The scarring on the left side of Hayes's face was extensive, the kind that spoke of surgeries and skin grafts and pain that lasted years. His left leg ended at the knee, the pant leg pinned up. but his eyes were clear and bright and filled with something Mitchell could not name. "Sir," Hayes said, his voice rough but steady, "it has been too long." Mitchell dropped to his knees, put himself at eye level, reached out with shaking hands and took Hayes's shoulders. "Marcus, God, Marcus, I thought you were dead. They told me you were dead." "I was dead." Hayes smiled. "Died twice on the medevac, died once more in Germany, but they kept bringing me back. Stubborn doctors. I left you." The words tore out of Mitchell like broken glass. "I let go. I left you in that fire." Hayes reached up and gripped Mitchell's wrists. His hands were scarred too, the skin tight and shiny. "Jim, can I call you Jim now? We are all old men. No more, sir. Jim, you did not leave me. You tried to pull me out until your hands bled. I saw the blood on the hatch rim after. I saw what you did. But I let go, because you had to. Because if you had stayed, we both would have died. And then who would have gotten Kyle and David out? Who would have called in the medevac? You made the only choice you could make, the right choice." Mitchell's vision blurred. "I have spent 25 years hating myself. I know." Hayes's grip tightened. "That is why we needed to find you. To tell you that you were wrong. To tell you that we never blamed you. Not for 1 second." Sarah had left the room at some point, giving them privacy. Mitchell became aware that he was still on his knees, that tears were running down his face, that 3 men were watching him break apart and did not look away, did not judge, just waited. Anderson helped him to his feet, guided him to a chair. Someone pushed a bottle of water into his hands. Mitchell drank without tasting it. "Tell me," he said when he could speak again. "Tell me what happened after. They told me you died in the explosion. They had a memorial service, empty casket." Rivera spoke first. "They pulled you off the line immediately, sent you to the rear for psych eval, standard procedure after losing a crew member. By the time they cleared you, we had rotated home. You were kept in theater for debriefing." "And you?" Mitchell looked at Hayes. Hayes leaned back in his wheelchair. "I spent 4 months in a burn unit in Germany, 60% of my body. Lost the leg, lost hearing in my left ear, lost the ability to smile right." He demonstrated the left side of his mouth not quite moving correctly. "But I lived. The Army listed you as K. They listed me as KIA because they thought I was going to die. By the time they updated the records, you had already been discharged. Medical discharge, right?" Mitchell nodded. "PTSD, depression, suicidal ideation. They did not say it that kindly, but that was the gist. We tried to find you." Anderson sat down across from him. "All 3 of us. We went to your last known address. Your ex-wife said you did not want to be found, that you had made it clear you wanted nothing to do with your old life. I told Nancy to tell people I was dead." Mitchell stared at his hands. It seemed easier than explaining why I could not face anyone. The silence stretched. Then Hayes spoke, his voice gentle. "Jim, there is something I need to tell you. Something I have carried for 25 years. Something that might change how you see that day." Mitchell looked up. "What do you mean?" Hayes took a breath, let it out slowly. "That day, February 26th, when the RPG hit us, it did not just hit us randomly. I saw it coming." "You saw it?" "Through my gun sight, 3 seconds before impact. I saw the Iraqi soldier raise the launcher, saw him aim, had time to warn you." "Then why did you not warn me?" Hayes's jaw tightened. "Because 50 meters ahead of us, there were Iraqi soldiers surrendering. 20 of them, maybe more. Hands up. And if I had warned you, you would have ordered evasive maneuvers. The tank would have turned. Our gun would have swung toward them. They would have thought we were preparing to fire. They would have defended themselves. So you took the hit." "I took the hit." Hayes met his eyes. "Because our infantry was moving up behind those soldiers. If shooting had started, Americans would have died. Maybe a lot of Americans. So I made a choice. I did not warn you. I let us get hit. And then, when you were trying to pull me out, when that hatch was jammed, I locked it from the inside." Mitchell's breath stopped. "What?" "For 5 seconds. Just 5 seconds. Long enough for you to think it was stuck beyond help. Long enough for you to have an excuse to leave. Because I knew you, Jim. I knew you would rather burn than leave a man behind. So I made the decision for you. You sacrificed yourself. I made a commander's decision." Hayes's voice was steady. "Just like you taught me. Sometimes we sacrifice ourselves so the mission succeeds. Sometimes we make the hard call so someone else does not have to. You taught me that." The room was spinning. Mitchell gripped the edge of the table. You are telling me that I have spent 25 years hating myself for a decision you made? No, Hayes leaned forward. I am telling you that we both made decisions that day. You decided to follow orders and evacuate. I decided to lock that hatch. Both decisions were right. Both decisions saved lives. And both of us have been carrying guilt we do not deserve. Rivera spoke up. Sir Jim, we have all made it home because of you. Hayes lived because you pulled at that hatch until your hands were destroyed. I saw them. I saw the blood. Anderson lived because you drilled us on evacuation procedures 100 times. We did not panic because you taught us not to panic. I have 3 children, Hayes said. Marcus Jr. is 19 now. Daughter Sarah, 17. Son David, 14. Named after you two, he gestured at Rivera and Anderson. I have a life, a good life, all because you gave me a chance to have it. Anderson pulled out his phone, showed Mitchell photos. His family, 3 grown children, 2 grandchildren, Jenny, gray-haired and smiling, surrounded by the family they had built. This is what you gave us, Anderson said. Not just survival, a future. Mitchell put his head in his hands. The sobs came hard and fast. 25 years of grief and guilt pouring out. The 3 men let him cry. Did not offer platitudes, did not tell him it was okay. Just sat with him in his pain until it passed. When he could breathe again, Mitchell looked up. How do I make up for 25 years? You do not, Rivera said simply. You cannot change the past, but you can change what comes next. Sarah knocked and entered, reading the room with a glance. Gentlemen, I hate to interrupt, but there is someone here who wants to meet Captain Mitchell. The door opened wider. A young man in Army uniform stepped in, lieutenant's bars on his shoulders. The same broad face as Hayes, the same steady eyes. Captain Mitchell, Hayes said, I would like you to meet my son, Lieutenant Marcus Hayes, Jr. The young man saluted. Mitchell stood automatically, returned it. The lieutenant extended his hand. Sir, my father has told me about you every day of my life, about the commander who taught him what it means to lead, what it means to care about your crew. I wanted to meet you before I deploy. Deploy? Mitchell shook his hand, feeling the calluses of a man who trained hard. Afghanistan, 30 days. Hayes Jr. smiled, and it was his father's smile, lopsided but genuine. I am a tank commander now, sir, M1 Abrams, and I have a crew that needs to learn what my father learned from you. Mitchell looked at Hayes Sr. You told him to ask me this. Hayes shook his head. I told him you existed. He decided on his own that he needed to meet you, that maybe the man who saved his father could teach him how to save his crew. Mitchell looked at this young man, same age as Hayes had been in '91, same eagerness in his eyes, same trust. The weight of it was crushing. I have not been in a tank in 25 years. I have nothing to teach. That is not true. Hayes Jr.'s voice was respectful but firm. My crew and I have the technical training. We know how to operate the systems. But my father says you taught him something more important. You taught him how to be human in a machine, how to care about the people you are responsible for, how to make impossible decisions and live with them. Mitchell felt the eyes of his old crew on him, felt the weight of history and hope. What exactly are you asking me? Hayes Jr. straightened. Sir, I am asking you to train me and my crew. We have 30 days. Teach us what you taught my father. Teach us how to bring our people home. The old panic rose in Mitchell's chest. What if I fail you? Then you fail. Hayes Sr. wheeled forward. Jim, you spent 25 years running from failure. Maybe it is time to run towards something instead. These kids need you, and maybe you need them too. Mitchell closed his eyes, saw himself at 26 climbing into Warhorse for the first time, saw his crew looking at him with trust he had not yet earned, saw the choice booper in him now. Keep running or stand and fight one more time. He opened his eyes. How much time do we have? Hayes Jr. grinned. My crew is waiting downstairs. We flew in last night. If you are willing, sir, we can start today. Sarah spoke from the doorway. The museum does not open until tomorrow. You have the whole facility to yourselves. Every tank, every vehicle, every training space we have. If you are going to do this, this is the place to do it. Mitchell looked at his old crew, at the young lieutenant waiting for his answer, at the choice between the man he had been and the man he could become. All right, he heard his voice, steadier than he felt. Show me your crew. They took an elevator down to the museum floor. The space was vast, cathedral-like. Tanks and armored vehicles arranged in chronological order, from World War I to the present. Spotlights illuminated them like sculptures, like monuments, like prayers made of steel. And there in the center of the modern warfare section stood Warhorse. Mitchell stopped walking, could not move, could not breathe. 25 years and there it was, 60 tons of armor, fully restored, painted in desert camouflage. The call sign visible on the turret, the scars of battle erased by careful restoration. "Take your time," Sarah said softly. The others moved ahead, giving him space. Mitchell approached alone, put his hand on the glacia's plate. The metal was cool under his palm. Real, solid, the machine that had been his home. The machine where he had lost everything and apparently saved everything. He walked around it slowly, saw where the new turret had been grafted onto the original hull, saw the commander's hatch, restored, functional, saw the gunner's position below. "Captain Mitchell?" A voice behind him, young, female. He turned. A young woman in ACU stood there, sergeant stripes on her chest. Maybe 26, 27, short, compact Asian features. She saluted. "Sergeant Amy Chen, sir, gunner. Lieutenant Hayes said you might be willing to help us train." Behind her stood two more soldiers. A tall African-American man, mid-20s, loader's build. A shorter Latino man, early 20s, with the lean look of a driver. "Specialist Marcus Johnson," the tall one said. "J.J. Loader." "Private Luis Mendoza," the third added, driver. Mitchell looked at them, saw himself at their age, saw Hayes and Rivera and Anderson, saw the endless cycle of young men climbing into steel coffins and hoping they would climb back out. "Have you deployed before?" Chen shook her head. "This is our first. Lieutenant Hayes got command of our tank 3 months ago. We have been training together since then, but none of us have seen combat." Hayes Jr. joined them. "Sir, I told them you might be able to help us prepare. Not just technically, but mentally. They need to know what it is really like." Mitchell looked at Warhorse, at the machine that had defined him. "What makes you think I am qualified to teach anyone anything?" "Because you brought your crew home." Hayes Jr.'s voice was quiet. "Because you made the hard calls. Because you cared enough that it still hurts 25 years later. That is what we need to learn." Mitchell turned to the young crew. "How much do you know about what happened to me?" Chen spoke. "The lieutenant told us you were his father's commander, that there was an incident in 91, that you saved your crew. He did not tell you I left his father to burn in a tank?" Silence. Then Johnson spoke, his voice deep and careful. "He told us you followed orders, that you made an impossible choice, that his father is alive because of what you did." Mitchell looked at Hayes Jr. "You told them that?" "I told them the truth. That command means making choices no one should have to make, that sometimes there are no good options, that the measure of a commander is not whether they are perfect, but whether they care enough to be haunted by their mistakes." "And you want me to teach them this?" "I want you to teach them how to survive." Hayes Jr. met his eyes, not just physically, but how to survive what war does to you. How to come home whole, not broken like so many do. "My father made it because he had you as an example. I want my crew to have that same chance." Tommy Reeves appeared from behind a Sherman tank, wiping grease from his hands. The museum's chief restoration engineer looked like he belonged in the 1940s, with his rolled-up sleeves and oil-stained work pants. He approached with the easy confidence of a man comfortable with machinery. "Captain Mitchell," Tommy said, offering a hand. "I am the one who put Warhorse back together. Took 3 years. If you are going to train these kids, you should know what we found when we opened her up." "What did you find?" Tommy pulled a small metal box from his pocket. "Dog tags. Yours and your crew's. We also found this." He opened the box. Inside was a small notebook, pages yellowed, cover stained. Mitchell recognized it immediately. Hayes' journal. He had seen Marcus writing in it during quiet moments, during the long waiting between missions. "Read it," Tommy said. "Hayes Sr. already has. He said you need to see it." Mitchell took the notebook with shaking hands, opened to a random page. Hayes' handwriting, neat despite the cramped conditions. January 15, 1991. Another day of hurry up and wait. Captain Mitchell had us run evacuation drills again. 5th time this week. Rivera complains, but I get it. The captain is making sure we do not have to think when things go bad. That we just move. That is good leadership. Making the hard things automatic so your crew survives. Mitchell flipped forward. Another entry. February 3rd, 1991. Captain Mitchell asked each of us today what we want to do after we get home. Anderson wants to marry Jenny. Rivera wants to go to medical school. I told him I want to open a restaurant. He said he would be my first customer. I believe him. The captain cares about us as people, not just as crew. That is rare. One more. Dated February 25th, one day before the incident. Tomorrow we move up. Could be our first real engagement. I am scared, but I trust Captain Mitchell. If something happens, I know he will do everything in his power to bring us home. That is all a soldier can ask for. A commander who cares whether you live or die. Mitchell closed the notebook. His hands were shaking again. Hayes Jr. took it gently. My father wants you to know that you did everything he trusted you to do. You tried to bring him home. You did bring him home, just not the way either of you expected. Sarah stepping forward. Captain Mitchell, if you are going to do this, we should establish a training schedule. The museum stays closed until tomorrow's opening. Today you have the entire facility, all the vehicles, all the time you need. Mitchell looked at the four young soldiers waiting for his answer. Looked at Hayes Sr. in his wheelchair, smiling encouragement. Looked at Warhorse, the machine that had become his cross and his salvation. All right, his voice was rough but steady. We start now. Hayes Jr., get your crew together. Everyone else, I need space and silence. The museum cleared. Just Mitchell and the four soldiers, standing in the shadow of 60 tons of history. Mitchell walked to Warhorse, placed his hand on the hatch. First lesson, this machine is not your weapon. It is your home. For the next year of your life, you will eat, sleep, fight, and possibly die in here. Your crew is your family, the only family that matters when things go bad. You understand? Four voices. Yes, sir. Second lesson. Your job is not to be brave. Your command is not to be a hero. Your job is to bring each other home. Every decision you make, every order you give, every action you take has one purpose: getting your crew home alive. Sometimes that means advancing. Sometimes that means retreating. Sometimes it means making calls that will haunt you for the rest of your life. Mitchell looked at each of them. Chen, standing straight, trying to prove she belonged. Johnson, arms crossed, protective stance. Mendoza, nervous, eager. Hayes Jr., steady and attentive. Third lesson, you will be scared every single day. Fear is normal. Fear keeps you alert. But panic kills. You control the fear, or the fear controls you. And if you panic, your crew dies. Chen raised her hand. Sir, how do you control fear? You do not. You accept it. You acknowledge it. Then you do your job anyway. Mitchell gestured to the tanks around them. Every man who ever climbed into one of these machines was scared. The ones who survived were the ones who kept working despite the fear. He turned to Hayes Jr. Lieutenant, your crew trusts you. That trust is a gift and a burden. You will make mistakes. You will have regrets. The question is whether you can forgive yourself for being human while still holding yourself to an impossible standard. Can you do that? Hayes Jr. hesitated, then nodded. I do not know, sir, but I want to learn how. Then we start with the basics. Mitchell climbed onto Warhorse. His body remembered the movements. Muscle memory, 25 years old, coming back like he had never left. He opened the commander's hatch, looked down into the turret. The smell hit him. Oil and metal and something indefinable. The smell of war waiting to happen. Everyone up. We are going to run evacuation drills until you can do them in your sleep. Because someday you will need to do them in smoke, in fire, in terror. And the only thing that will save you is training so deep it bypasses thought. They climbed up. Chen struggled with the height. Mitchell offered a hand. She hesitated, pride fighting need, then took it. For the next 4 hours, Mitchell ran them through evacuation procedures. Again and again, timing each run, pushing them harder when they got comfortable. Making them do it with their eyes closed. Making them do it while he shouted at them, simulating combat stress. Johnson lost his temper in hour 3. This is bullshit, sir. We know how to evacuate. Mitchell got in his face. You know how to evacuate when you are calm and rested and safe. You do not know how to evacuate when your loader is on fire and ammunition is cooking off and you have 7 seconds to live. That is what we are practicing. The difference between knowing and doing under pressure. Johnson backed down. They continued. By the time Mitchell called a halt, all 4 soldiers were exhausted, sweating despite the cool museum air, hands shaking from adrenaline and fatigue. Mitchell climbed down from Warhorse, sat on the deck. The crew followed, collapsing around him. Why are you here? Mitchell asked. Each of you, why did you join the army? Mendoza spoke first. My family came from Mexico when I was 5. America gave us everything. I wanted to give back. Johnson was next. My brother was killed in a gang shooting. I joined to get away, to be something other than another statistic. Chen met Mitchell's eyes. I am 5'2". Every instructor told me I could not do this job. I am here to prove them wrong. Hayes Jr. smiled. My father was a tank commander. I grew up hearing his stories. I wanted to understand what he went through, to honor his service. Mitchell nodded slowly. Those are all good reasons, but they will not keep you alive. You want to know what will keep you alive? They waited, caring about each other more than you care about yourself. That is it. That is the secret. The crews that survive are the ones who would rather die than let their brothers down. Everything else is just tactics. Sir, Chen said, how do we learn that? You do not learn it. You build it. Day by day, mission by mission, by trusting each other with your lives and proving that trust is earned. Mitchell stood. That is what we are going to do for the next 30 days. Build trust so strong that nothing can break it. They broke for dinner in the museum cafe, a small kitchen area for staff. Sarah had ordered pizza. They ate in silence for a while, exhaustion settling in. Hayes Sr. wheeled over, Rivera and Anderson with him, pulled up chairs. The old crew and the new crew, eating together. This was how it was, Hayes said to his son. Eating together, living together, becoming family. That is what your father is building with your crew. How long did it take you, Chen asked, to become that tight? Hayes looked at Mitchell. How long were we together before deployment? 7 months. Mitchell did not have to think about it. 7 months of training, living in each other's pockets, learning each other's tells. By the time we deployed, I knew what each of them was thinking before they said it. We do not have 7 months, Hayes Jr. said quietly. We have 30 days. Then we do 7 months of work in 30 days. Mitchell met his eyes. It will not be easy. It will not be fun. But if you trust me, if you commit to this, I will get you as ready as I can. The crew looked at each other, some silent communication passing between them. Then Hayes Jr. nodded. We are in, sir. That evening, Mitchell walked the museum alone, moved from tank to tank, reading the plaques, remembering the wars. World War II Sherman, the tank his father had commanded. Korean War Pershing, built for a different kind of combat. Vietnam-era M48 Patton. He stopped at the M48. The plaque indicated it was on loan from a private collector. Being restored, story pending. Tommy Reeves appeared beside him. That one is mine. My father's tank. Sergeant William Reeves. He died in Vietnam, 1969, when my mother was 8 months pregnant with me. Your father was a tank commander? Driver, actually. But yeah, Tommy put a hand on the cold metal. I spent 20 years searching for information about his death. Finally tracked down his unit's last location in 2015. Took another 3 years to find a farmer who remembered an American tank abandoned in his rice paddy. You found this tank in Vietnam? Bought it for $3,000, Tommy smiled slightly. Shipped it back in 2018. When we opened the turret, I found my father. What was left of him? Dog tags, some bones. He had been there for 49 years. Mitchell put a hand on the young man's shoulder. I am sorry. Do not be. Tommy's eyes were bright. Finding him, bringing him home, giving him a proper burial, that was the greatest gift I ever received. He was not missing anymore, and neither was I. Is that why you do this work? Tommy nodded. These tanks are not just machines, Captain. They are time capsules. They are memories in steel. Every tank I restore, I feel like I am bringing someone home, even if just in spirit. Mitchell looked at the M48, seeing it with new eyes. You are a good man, Tommy. So are you, even if you do not believe it yet. They stood in silence. 2 men connected by steel and sacrifice, by fathers lost and found, by the endless work of remembering. Mitchell's phone buzzed. Daniel? Checking in. Mitchell stepped away to answer. Dad, how did it go? It went. Mitchell tried to find words. I met them. My crew. They are all alive, even the one I thought I killed. And I am going to train a new crew, a young lieutenant and his team. They deploy in 30 days. Silence on the other end. Then Daniel spoke, voice thick with emotion. Dad, I am proud of you. I have not done anything yet. You faced your past. That is everything. Are you coming back to the hotel tonight? I think I will stay here. There is a room for staff. I need to be close to the tanks, to the work. Okay, call me tomorrow. The kids want to meet you. Tomorrow, Mitchell promised. I love you, son. Love you too, Dad. Mitchell found Sarah in her office, reviewing opening day plans. She looked up as he knocked. "Captain, what can I do for you?" "I need to stay here for the next 30 days. Can you arrange that?" Sarah smiled. "Already done. There is a room upstairs. Small but private, bed, bathroom, desk, yours as long as you need it." "Thank you." Mitchell hesitated. "Why are you doing this? Helping me?" "Because my father was a tank commander, and I never got to know him." Sarah's eyes were bright. "He died in Vietnam when I was 6 months old. Mom remarried, moved on, but I never stopped wondering what he was like. What made him climb into that tank every day?" She gestured to the museum around them. "This is my way of knowing him, of understanding the world he lived in. And when men like you come here, men who served, who carry the weight of command, I get to see what he might have been like. Who he was before the war took him." Mitchell nodded, understanding. "I will do my best with these kids." "I know you will." Sarah handed him a key card. "Room 214. There is food in the break room fridge. Help yourself." Mitchell took the elevator to the second floor. Found his room. Small, like Sarah said, but clean, quiet, a window overlooking the museum floor below. He could see Warhorse from here, illuminated by spotlights, waiting. He lay on the bed fully clothed, closed his eyes. For the first time in 25 years, he was not running, was not hiding, was not alone. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Tomorrow, he would teach 4 young soldiers what he had learned at the cost of 25 years. Tomorrow, he would try to save them from becoming what he had been. But tonight, he slept. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, he did not dream of fire. The next 29 days blurred together in a rhythm of steel and sweat and slow transformation. Mitchell woke each morning at 5, just as he had for years, but now he woke with purpose. The museum became his world. The tanks his classroom. The 4 young soldiers, his mission. Day 2 began with physical training. Mitchell ran them through the parking lot at dawn, Hayes Jr. setting the pace despite his crew's protests. Chen struggled to keep up, her shorter legs working twice as hard. Johnson ran with barely contained energy, like violence looking for direction. Mendoza stayed steady, methodical, the way he approached everything. After PT came classroom work. Mitchell borrowed a conference room and covered the walls with maps, tactical diagrams, lessons learned from 3 decades of armored warfare. He taught them to think like their enemy, to anticipate, to never assume safety. But the real education happened in the tanks. Mitchell moved them through the museum's collection chronologically, using each vehicle to teach a different lesson. The World War II Sherman taught them about mechanical reliability and the importance of crew survival over tank survival. The Korean War Pershing taught them about fighting in extreme conditions. The Vietnam M48 taught them about ambush in the fog of war. And Warhorse taught them about sacrifice. On day 5, Mitchell had the crew climb into Warhorse and sit in their positions. Chen in the gunner's seat, Johnson in the loader's station, Mendoza at the driver's controls, Hayes Jr. in the commander's position where Mitchell had once sat. "Now close your eyes," Mitchell said from outside the tank. "Imagine you are buttoned up, in combat. You cannot see anything except through your sights. You cannot hear anything except the radio and the sound of your own breathing. You are completely dependent on your crew." He let them sit in the darkness for 5 minutes, 10, 15, until the silence became oppressive, until they understood the isolation of armored combat. When he finally told them to open their eyes and climb out, Chen was shaking. "That was terrifying," she admitted, "being sealed in, helpless." "Now you understand," Mitchell said. "That is why trust matters. In that box, you have nothing but each other. No one else can help you. No one else even knows what you are experiencing. Your crew is your entire world." Johnson spoke up, his voice quieter than usual. "How did you deal with that, the isolation?" "We talked." Mitchell smiled slightly at the memory. "About everything, about nothing." Hayes told jokes. Rivera talked about medical school. Anderson read us letters from his girlfriend. We became more than a crew. We became brothers. Hayes Jr. looked at his team. "We need to do that. Stop being professional all the time. Start being family." That afternoon, Mitchell ordered them to take a break. Sent them to the museum cafe with instructions not to talk about the Army or the mission or anything military. Just talk. Learn about each other as people. He watched from a distance as they sat together, awkward at first, then slowly opening up, laughing, sharing, becoming what they needed to be. His phone rang. "Daniel." Dad, you have been there for 5 days. When can we visit? Tomorrow, Mitchell heard himself say. Bring the kids. I want them to see what their grandfather does. Daniel's voice brightened. Really? Really, it is time. Day 6 brought Daniel and his grandchildren to the museum. Emma was 7, dark hair and pigtails, eyes wide with wonder. Jake was 4, holding his father's hand, uncertain about this strange place filled with metal monsters. Mitchell met them at the entrance, knelt down to be at eye level with Emma. Hello, I am your grandfather. Emma studied him seriously. Daddy says you were a soldier. I was, a long time ago. Were you brave? Mitchell glanced at Daniel, then back at Emma. I was scared, every day. But I had friends who helped me be brave anyway. Can you show me your tank? He showed them, walked them through the museum, explaining each vehicle in terms a child could understand. Emma asked 1,000 questions. Jake held Mitchell's hand and pointed at things that interested him. Daniel followed, recording on his phone, capturing moments Mitchell had thought he would never have. When they reached Warhorse, Mitchell lifted Emma up so she could see into the commander's hatch. This was my tank. This was my home. Did you fight bad guys? I did my job. I protected my friends. That is what soldiers do. Emma looked at him with complete trust. I think you were brave, Grandpa. Something in Mitchell's chest cracked open. He set her down gently. Thank you, sweetheart. They had lunch in the cafe. Emma sat next to Mitchell and told him about school, about her friends, about the soccer team she played on. Jake ate chicken nuggets and showed Mitchell his toy cars. Daniel watched with tears in his eyes. After they left, Hayes Sr. found Mitchell sitting alone in front of Warhorse. That was beautiful, Hayes said. Watching you with your grandchildren. I have wasted so much time. Then stop wasting more. Hayes wheeled closer. My son thinks the world of you, Jim. In 1 week, you have taught him more about leadership than I ever could, because you have lived it, you have suffered it, and now you are passing it on. I just do not want him to become like me, broken, running. He will not, because you are teaching him what you learned the hard way, that the armor we build around ourselves to protect us ends up being a prison. That real strength is letting people in. Mitchell looked at his old gunner. When did you get so wise? 25 years of therapy, Hayes grinned his lopsided grin. Being broken teaches you how to heal, and healing teaches you how to help others heal. On day 12, Mitchell introduced stress training. He had Tommy rig up smoke machines inside an old M1 armored personnel carrier. Put the crew inside in full gear, then filled the compartment with smoke and shouted contradictory orders while banging on the hull with a hammer. Johnson panicked first, tore off his gas mask, gasping. Mitchell had to physically restrain him until he calmed down. Afterward, Johnson sat outside the vehicle, head in his hands. I froze. I could not think. That is why we train, Mitchell said. Next time you will do better. What if I freeze in real combat? Then your crew brings you back. That is what they are there for. Mitchell sat beside him. You think I never panicked? I froze 3 times in training. 3 times my crew had to cover for me. But by the time we deployed, I had learned to push through it. You will too. Johnson looked at him. How do you know? Because you care enough to be afraid. The ones who do not make it are the ones who think they are invincible. You know you are vulnerable. That is wisdom. They ran the drill again and again. By the end of the day, all 4 crew members could function in smoke, noise, chaos, could follow procedures even when their minds screamed at them to run. Day 15 brought a surprise visitor. Mitchell was working with Chen on target identification when a voice called from across the museum floor. Is this a private party, or can anyone join? Mitchell turned. A man in his 80s wearing a Korean War veteran cap was being wheeled toward them by a middle-aged woman. The old man's eyes were sharp despite his age. Colonel Morrison? Mitchell recognized him from veteran gatherings. They had met briefly years ago. Captain Mitchell. Morrison offered a gnarled hand. I heard you were training a new crew. Thought I might share some wisdom from an old tanker. Sir, I would be honored. For the next 2 hours, Colonel Morrison told stories from Korea about frozen tanks and impossible odds, about crews that survived and crews that did not, about the decisions that haunted him 70 years later. The young crew listened in silence, understanding that they were receiving something precious, a direct connection to history, to the unbroken chain of men who had served in steel. Before he left, Morrison pulled Mitchell aside. I lost my loader at the Chosin Reservoir. Kid was 18. I am 88 years old now. Lived 70 years since that day. You know what I learned? Mitchell waited. That boy did not die so I could spend my life mourning him. He died so I could live, so I could have a wife, children, grandchildren, so I could matter to someone. Morrison's eyes were wet. Do not waste the life your gunner gave you, Captain. Honor him by living fully. After Morrison left, Mitchell stood for a long time staring at nothing. Then he called Daniel. Can you bring the kids again this weekend? I want to spend more time with them. Daniel's voice was thick with emotion. Anytime, Dad. Anytime you want. Day 20 brought a crisis. Chen pulled Mitchell aside after morning training. Sir, I need to tell you something. I am not sure I can do this. What do you mean? I mean, I am not strong enough. I am not fast enough. Every drill, I am the slowest. Every exercise, I struggle. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe I cannot be a gunner. Mitchell led her to the World War II section, pointed to a photo on the wall. 5 tankers standing in front of a Sherman. One of them was a woman. That is Sergeant Mary Churchill, Mitchell said. Drove a tank in the British Army, World War II. 5'1", weighed maybe 100 pounds, one of the best tank drivers in her unit. Chen studied the photo. I did not know women served in tanks back then. Not officially, but wars have a way of breaking rules when survival matters more than regulations. Mitchell turned to her. Sergeant Chen, you are not trying to prove you are as strong as the men. You are trying to prove you are good at your job. Those are different things. I am not good at my job. You are not good at it yet, but you are getting better every day. And you know what matters more than strength or speed? Precision, patience, the ability to make the right call under pressure. You have all of that. So Chen's eyes were bright. You really think so? I know so. Mitchell held her gaze. The question is whether you believe it, whether you will quit when it gets hard or push through until you prove to yourself what I already see. She straightened her shoulders. I will not quit, sir. Good, because your crew needs you, not some imaginary stronger version of you. They need exactly who you are. Day 23 brought an incident that would test everything Mitchell had been teaching. Mitchell arrived at the museum early to find police cars in the parking lot. Sarah stood by the entrance, face pale, talking to 2 officers. What happened? Mitchell approached. Vandalism. Sarah's voice was tight. Someone broke in last night, spray-painted one of the tanks. Which one? The M48 Patton, the Vietnam-era tank, Tommy's father's tank. They walked inside. The damage was worse than Mitchell expected. Red spray paint across the glacia's plate. One word, murderers. Tommy stood in front of the tank, fists clenched, shoulders shaking. Tommy, Mitchell said gently, they destroyed it. Tommy's voice broke. I spent 5 years restoring this. 5 years bringing my father home. And someone calls him a murderer. Sarah pulled up security footage on her tablet. The timestamp showed 2 a.m. A figure in dark clothes, face covered. But something about the gate, the way he moved, struck Mitchell as familiar. Wait, Mitchell said, go back. Freeze it there. Sarah paused the video. The vandal's jacket had slipped, revealing a patch. VFW Post 47, Vietnam veterans. Mitchell's stomach dropped. I know where to find him. 2 hours later, Mitchell and Sarah pulled up to a small house on the outskirts of Hudson. The lawn was overgrown, paint peeling, an old truck in the driveway with a bumper sticker. Vietnam veteran. Mitchell knocked. No answer. He knocked again. Go away, a voice called from inside. Mr. Burke, I need to talk to you. My name is Captain James Mitchell. Silence. Then the door cracked open. An old man stood there, late 70s, face weathered, eyes hard. I know who you are. Seen you at the museum, training those kids. You vandalized the M48 last night. Burke's jaw tightened. That tank killed my best friend. Killed a lot of good men. You want to put it on display? Make it a shrine? That is obscene. Mitchell kept his voice calm. Can we come in? I think we need to talk about Colonel Holbrook. At the mention of the name, Burke's face went white. How do you know about Holbrook? Because his daughter runs the museum. Because I know what it is like to carry guilt for 25 years. Because I think you and I have more in common than you realize. Burke stared at him for a long moment. Then he stepped aside. The living room was dark, curtains drawn, photos on the walls, young men in uniform. Burke in Vietnam, arm around another soldier, the friend he had lost. They sat, Sarah on the couch, Mitchell in a chair across from Burke. Tell me about Holbrook, Mitchell said. Burke's hands shook as he lit a cigarette. July 1971. Our platoon was ambushed. 4 tanks. NVA hit us hard. Colonel Holbrook was in command. He ordered us to withdraw. That sounds like the right call. It was the right call, Burke spat. except 3 men from Sergeant Reeves's tank were dismounted, pinned down by fire. They needed support. Holbrook called it in, then retreated anyway. Mitchell leaned forward. What were his orders from battalion? Burke hesitated to withdraw if contact was too heavy. So he followed orders. He left men behind. Burke stood up pacing. My best friend, Tommy Shaw, 22 years old, he died out there because Holbrook was too scared to stay and fight. Mitchell stood too, met Burke's eyes. Mr. Burke, I left my gunner in a burning tank, followed orders to evacuate, spent 25 years hating myself for it. Turns out he lived. Turns out I did the right thing, but I wasted 25 years running from everyone I loved because I could not forgive myself. You think this is the same? I think Colonel Holbrook made an impossible choice. I think you have been blaming him for 50 years because it is easier than accepting that sometimes there are no good answers. I think your friend Tommy did not die because of Holbrook. He died because war is hell. Sarah spoke up, her voice quiet. Captain Mitchell is right. My father did not leave anyone behind. He called in artillery support. On his own position, he died that day too, bringing fire down on himself to give those men cover. Burke turned to her, face pale. What? Sarah pulled out a folder, declassified after action reports. I only found these last month. My father radioed for artillery support, then stayed in position to direct the fire. The coordinates he gave were his own location. He died so those men would have a chance. Burke sank back into his chair. But Tommy still died. Yes, Mitchell said gently. Sometimes we do everything right and people still die. That is not failure. That is war. Burke put his head in his hands. I have been so angry for so long. I know, Mitchell said. So was I. But anger is just grief with nowhere to go. Your friend Tommy, he would not want you spending your last years hating a man who died trying to save him. How do you know what Tommy would want? Because I know what my gunner wanted. He wanted me to live, to have a life, to be happy. That is what all of them wanted, the ones who did not make it. They did not die so we could spend our lives in darkness. They died hoping we would step into the light. Burke looked up, eyes wet. I do not know how to let go. None of us do, Mitchell said. But we learn day by day. We let people help us carry it. We forgive ourselves. We honor the dead by living fully. Sarah leaned forward. Mr. Burke, the museum opening is in 7 days. I want you to come. I want you to help us honor your friend Tommy Shaw and my father and all the men who served. Will you do that? Burke looked at the photos on his wall. Young men frozen in time. Friends lost to a war that never really ended. Finally, he nodded. I will come, and I will apologize to Tommy Reeves for vandalizing his father's tank. They left Burke's house an hour later, drove back to the museum in silence. At the entrance, Sarah turned to Mitchell. How did you know what to say to him? Because 3 weeks ago, I was him. Angry, bitter, blaming myself. Your father did not leave men behind. He made the only choice he could, and he deserves to be honored for his service, not condemned for an impossible decision. Sarah hugged him. Thank you for giving me my father back. That evening, Mitchell gathered Hayes Jr.'s crew, told them about Burke, about Holbrook, about the weight that commanders carry. This is what you need to understand, Mitchell said. Command means making choices no one should have to make, and living with them. Your job is not to be perfect. It is to care enough about your crew that every decision hurts. Because the day it stops hurting, the day you stop caring, that is when you have truly failed. Hayes Jr. asked, Sir, how do we live with it if we make a wrong choice? Mitchell looked at his old crew, Hayes, Anderson, Rivera, then at his son Daniel, who had joined them. You do not live with it alone. You let the people who love you help carry it. That is the lesson I learned too late. Do not make my mistake. Day 26 brought an unexpected phone call. Mitchell answered without looking at the caller ID. Captain Mitchell? A woman's voice. Official, military bearing. Yes? This is Major General Patricia Holbrook, United States Army. I understand you knew my father, Colonel James Holbrook. He served in Vietnam. Mitchell's mind raced. Holbrook. Sarah had mentioned her father was named James Holbrook. Ma'am, I did not know him personally, but I have learned about him. He was a good officer. Sarah told me what you did, how you helped that veteran, Mr. Burke, understand what really happened, how you defended my father's honor. General Holbrook's voice softened. I became a general trying to understand my father, to honor him. But I realize now that honor is not about rank or medals. It is about how you treat the people you lead. She paused. Tomorrow is the museum opening. I am flying in. And I want to ask you something. Would you speak? Share what you have learned about leadership, about sacrifice, about the covenant between commanders and crews. Ma'am, I am not a public speaker. You are a man who brought his crew home, who spent 25 years learning a hard lesson, who is now passing that knowledge to the next generation. That is exactly who should speak. Mitchell hesitated, then thought about Burke, about Tommy Reeves, about Hayes and his son, about all the broken men trying to find their way home. I will do it, he said. Thank you, Captain. My father would have been proud to serve with a man like you. Day 29 arrived with preparation and nervous energy. The young crew ran through their final drills. Mitchell watched from a distance, seeing how far they had come. Chen moved with confidence now. Johnson had learned to channel his anger into focus. Mendoza spoke up when he saw something wrong. Hayes Jr. led them with quiet authority. They were ready as anyone could be. That evening, the entire group gathered for dinner. Mitchell's old crew, Hayes Jr.'s new crew, Sarah and Tommy, Daniel with Emma and Jake. Burke had come too, sitting quietly, listening to the stories. Hayes Sr. raised a glass to Captain Mitchell, who taught us that the hardest part of war is not the fighting, it is learning to live after. They drank. Then Anderson added, to the crews who did not make it home, may we honor them by living the lives they did not get to live. Another toast. Then Rivera, to forgiveness, for others and for ourselves. Mitchell felt Daniel's hand on his shoulder, his grandchildren playing at his feet, his old crew around him, the young crew he was sending into danger. And he understood that this was what healing looked like. Not forgetting, not moving on, but standing together and saying we survived, and that matters. Day 30, opening day, October 10th. The museum parking lot filled early. Veterans from across New England, active duty soldiers, families, students, media crews, hundreds of people coming to witness history come alive. Mitchell stood in the staff room wearing his dress uniform for the first time in 25 years. The ribbons across his chest told stories he had tried to forget. Bronze Star, Purple Heart, campaign medals. A knock on the door. Hayes Jr. and his crew, also in dress uniforms. Sir, Hayes Jr. said, we ship out tomorrow morning. Before we go, we wanted to thank you. You do not need to thank me. Yes, sir, we do, Chen stepped forward. You taught us that leadership is not about being fearless. It is about being honest about our fears. Johnson added, you taught us that strength is asking for help, not pretending we do not need it. Mendoza spoke quietly. You taught us that our crew is our family, and family does not leave each other behind. Hayes Jr. met Mitchell's eyes. You taught me what my father knew but could not quite explain, that the covenant between commander and crew is sacred, that we are bound by something stronger than duty, by love. Mitchell's throat tightened. You all are going to make it home. I know it. Because you showed us how, Hayes Jr. said. The ceremony began at 10 a.m. The museum was packed. Sarah Holbrook welcomed the crowd, introduced the museum's mission, spoke about preservation and memory and honor. Then she introduced Tommy Reeves, who stood beside the restored M48 Patton. Tommy's voice was steady as he told his father's story, about a young driver who died doing his duty, about a son who spent 20 years searching, about finally bringing his father home. The plaque beside the M48 now read, Sergeant William Reeves, 1947 to 1969. Driver, father, American. He came home. The crowd was silent. Several veterans were crying. Then Sarah introduced a surprise guest. Major General Patricia Holbrook stepped to the podium in full dress uniform. My father was Colonel James Holbrook, she said. He died in Vietnam in 1971 when I was 6 months old. For 40 years, I did not know how he died. Last month, I learned the truth. He called artillery fire on his own position to save 3 dismounted soldiers. He died a hero. She gestured to where Burke sat in the audience. And thanks to Captain James Mitchell, a man who had been carrying 50 years of anger about my father's death, has found peace. Mr. Burke, would you join me? Burke, looking frail and uncertain, walked to the stage. General Holbrook embraced him. This man was my father's radio man, she said. He tried to save those soldiers. He has carried guilt and anger for 5 decades. Today we release him from that burden. Today we say thank you for your service. Thank you for caring. Thank you for surviving. Burke broke down. General Holbrook held him while he cried. There was not a dry eye in the room. Then Sarah introduced Mitchell. He walked to the podium on legs that felt steadier than they had in 25 years. looked out at hundreds of faces, found his crew, found Daniel and his grandchildren, found Hayes Jr. and the young soldiers, found strength in all of them. Mitchell began to speak. 25 years ago, I made a decision that I thought killed my gunner. I spent those years running from that decision. From my crew, from my family, from myself. I became a ghost, haunted by a sin I thought I had committed. 3 weeks ago, I learned my gunner was alive, that the decision I thought had killed him had actually saved him, that I had wasted 25 years hating myself for doing the right thing. He paused. I am here today to tell you about the Iron Covenant, the sacred bond between a commander and crew, between any leader and those who follow. Mitchell gestured to the tanks around them. Every man who climbed into one of these machines made a covenant, a promise. I will bring you home. I will protect you. I will value your life above my own. That is command. That is leadership. That is love. But the covenant does not end when the battle ends. It continues in how we treat each other, how we remember, how we heal. His voice grew stronger. The Iron Covenant has 5 parts. First, trust your crew with your life. Second, make decisions even when there are no good choices. Third, care deeply because the day you stop feeling is the day you fail. Fourth, forgive yourself for being human. And fifth, come home, not just physically, but emotionally. Let people love you. He looked at Hayes Jr. and his crew, to the young soldiers heading into harm's way. Your job is not to be heroes. Your job is to bring each other home. Trust each other, care for each other, and when it gets hard, remember you are part of an unbroken chain of warriors. We are with you. Mitchell's eyes found Burke. To my fellow veterans, the war is over. We survived. Now we must learn to live. It is time to stop running from the people who love us. Time to let others help carry our burdens. Time to come home. He stepped back. The room erupted in applause. Standing ovation. Hundreds of people honoring not him, but the covenant he had finally learned to keep. After the ceremony, Mitchell was surrounded by veterans, shaking hands, sharing stories, listening to pain and offering what comfort he could. An old Navy veteran gripped his hand. I lost half my crew in World War II, 80 years of guilt. Today you gave me permission to let it go. A young Marine in dress blue saluted. I lost 2 Marines in Iraq. 10 years of therapy. You helped me more in 10 minutes than 10 years of sessions. One by one they came, finding solace in shared pain, finding hope in the knowledge that they were not alone. Hours later, after the crowds thinned, Mitchell found Hayes Jr. and his crew standing before Warhorse. We ship out tomorrow, Hayes Jr. said. Will you be here when we come home? I will be here, Mitchell promised. The covenant does not end because you deploy. I will be waiting, and when you come home, we will talk about what you experienced. Together. Hayes Jr. saluted. Thank you, sir, for everything. Mitchell pulled him into an embrace. Bring them home, Lieutenant. That is your only mission. I will, because you taught me how. 6 months later, Lieutenant Marcus Hayes Jr. returned from Afghanistan. All 4 crew members, healthy, alive, mission accomplished. Mitchell was waiting at the base. They embraced. Welcome home, Mitchell said. You kept the covenant. Because you taught me how, Hayes Jr. replied. The museum had grown, more tanks restored, more stories told, more lives touched. Mitchell had become a permanent fixture, living in staff quarters, leading tours, mentoring young soldiers, connecting past and present. Burke visited weekly. He and Tommy Reeves had become friends, bonded by their father's shared history. Burke helped with tours, telling stories about Vietnam with honesty and without anger. Daniel and the grandchildren came monthly. Emma wanted to be a tanker when she grew up. Jake had decided Grandpa was his favorite person in the world. Hayes Sr. visited weekly, wheeling through the museum, sharing wisdom with anyone who would listen. One April morning, Mitchell stood alone before Warhorse as dawn light filled the museum. He placed his hand on the cold metal. Thank you, he said quietly, for saving us, for teaching me, for bringing me home. Behind him, a child's voice. Grandpa? Emma ran across the floor, Jake following. Daniel walked behind, smiling. You came early, Mitchell said. Could not wait. Emma grabbed his hand. Will you teach us about the tanks? Mitchell looked at his grandchildren, at his son, at Warhorse, at the museum filling with morning light, at the life he had almost thrown away and had somehow been given back. Yes, he said, I will teach you everything I know. They walked together through the halls of memory, Mitchell understood now that the covenant was not just between commander and crew, it was between all of us, between past and present, between the broken and the healed, between fathers and sons. The tank stood silent, monuments to sacrifice, vessels of memory, reminders that we are all bound together by duty and love and shared humanity. In the morning light, they were not machines of war. They were time capsules preserving the stories of ordinary people who did extraordinary things. Mitchell had fought his own war for 25 years, had lost more than he won, but in the end, he had learned the only lesson that mattered, that we are not meant to carry our burdens alone, that strength is accepting help, that coming home is about opening your heart to the people who love you. Emma tugged his hand. Grandpa, you are smiling. Mitchell knelt down. Happy, sweetheart, just happy. Because he was home. After 25 years of exile, he was finally home. The Iron Covenant was kept, not by being perfect, but by being present, by showing up, by trying, by forgiving himself and others for being beautifully, painfully, gloriously human. And that made all the difference. The end.